Yorvath Wren stood motionless in the dim light of the rusting Fang, a notorious mercenary bar orbiting the mining planet Tyrallus IV. His scarred hands wrapped tightly around a steaming synthale as his eyes locked on the flickering holovid floating above the cracked table. The screen showed a human face, sharp-featured, pale, with cold, calculating eyes. The voice was calm, almost indifferent. "We don't take prisoners. Not anymore." Yorvath's lips twitched in a ghost of a smile, but the cold knot tightening in. His gut was real. The message was part of the briefing he'd been sent. A contract so lucrative it could buy his crew freedom for a decade, if they lived that long. The target? A human special forces squad known only as Valkyrie Unit 9. The hunters were supposed to eliminate them before they completed their mission on Grave Hollow, a planet so deadly it had earned the nickname, the Deathworld. Grave Hollow, Yorvath muttered to himself. The name alone was enough to chill even the bravest mercenaries. Acid storms that dissolved metal, predators with razor claws and seismic rifts swallowing entire camps. Only the toughest survived, and those were only rumors. Across the table, Yorvath's second-in-command, Killen, leaned in, eyes gleaming with excitement. "You're thinking too much, Wren. This is what we live for. High risk, high reward. The client's willing to pay triple what anyone else would. I say we take it." Yorvath's gaze drifted to the other mercenaries scattered around the bar, grizzled veterans who had faced hell and back, yet none would touch this contract. The reason was whispered but never spoken aloud. Mercenaries who go after Deathworlder special forces never come back. Killen noticed the hesitation and pressed on, voice low. "Look, the stories are just that. Stories. Humans are primitive. Slow compared to us. They have tech, sure, but it's nothing we haven't seen. Besides, Valkyrie Unit 9 has been missing for months. Maybe they're already dead. Or maybe they're waiting," Yorvath replied quietly, the shadow of the message still haunting him. He slid a sealed data pad across the table. "The client wants them found and stopped, dead or alive. There's no room for mistakes." Killen snatched the pad eagerly, scanning the details. "We'll need a ship with stealth capabilities, high-grade armor, and enough firepower to burn a small moon." "Already arranged," Yorvath said. "We leave in 48 hours." As the crew dispersed to prepare, Yorvath remained behind, staring at the holovid again. The human soldier's voice echoed in his mind, cold and unforgiving. "We don't take prisoners." A sudden knock interrupted his thoughts. The bar's door slid open, revealing a slender figure cloaked in dark armor. There, face hidden behind a reflective visor, the room seemed to hold its breath as the newcomer approached Yorvath's table. "Captain Wren," the figure said in a voice like gravel. "The client wants to add a warning." Yorvath's hand instinctively moved to the blaster at his side. "Go on." The figure leaned in, voice low. "You won't find Valkyrie Unit 9, not because they hide, because they don't want to be found. And if you do, they'll make sure you disappear. Mercenaries who've crossed them before, none have returned to tell the tale." The bar's noise seemed to fade, the usual cacophony replaced by an eerie silence. Yorvath's crew glanced nervously toward him, sensing the weight of the moment. "Thanks for the warning," Yorvath said, voice steady but cold. "But warnings don't pay bills." The figure nodded, backing away into the shadows. "Good luck, you're going to need it." Yorvath sat back, his mind racing. He'd faced horrors before, pirates, alien warlords, even rogue AI. But this was something else. Something that scared even the hardiest mercs into silence. He stood, calling the crew together. "Listen up. We're not just hunting soldiers. We're hunting a force bred for survival on a planet designed to kill. They don't die. They don't retreat. They hunt." The mercenaries exchanged uneasy looks but nodded. The allure of the pay was too strong to ignore. As they boarded their stealth cruiser, Yorvath cast one last look at the fading holovid. Somewhere out there on Grave Hollow, Valkyrie Unit 9 was waiting. And this time, the hunter would become the hunted. The stealth cruiser Black Mamba sliced silently through the dense atmosphere of Grave Hollow, its dark hull barely visible beneath the swirling acid clouds and flickering lightning. Inside the cramped command deck, Captain Yorvath Wren peered at the planetary scans projected before him. The readings were brutal. Corrosive acid rain falling in violent sheets, ground tremors shaking the landscape every few minutes, and dense thorn-covered forests teeming with creatures that could swallow a manhole. "Looks like hell," muttered Killen, pacing behind Yorvath. "How do humans even survive here?" Yorvath didn't answer. He had seen enough so far to know this was no ordinary battlefield. This was a nightmare crafted by nature itself. Gravehollow wasn't just hostile. It was designed to break anyone who set foot on it. The ship's sensors detected faint energy signatures, life signs, scattered near the ruins of a long-abandoned human colony. "That has to be our target," Yorvath said grimly. "Valkyrie Unit 9 is operating somewhere. Out there, we find them, we end this." As the Black Mamba dropped low, the acidic rain pelted the ship's shields with relentless fury. The crew strapped in tightly, hearts pounding as the storm battered their hull. "Prepare for drop," Yorvath ordered. "We don't get many chances at this." Outside, the world unfolded into a chaotic landscape of twisted metal ruins and jagged cliffs. The air was thick with a choking fog that hid dangers unseen. The drop pod slammed into the ground, throwing the mercenaries violently into the wet alien soil. Yorvath landed first, shaking off the impact, eyes scanning the horizon. The storm was worse than they expected. Every step left a steaming imprint on the acid-corroded earth. Killen checked their gear, voice tight. "Sensors are acting up. The jungle's interfering with our comms. We're blind out here. Stay close. No one gets separated," Yorvath barked. "Keep your eyes open, this planet is hunting us." They moved cautiously, stepping over gnarled roots and through thick underbrush that clawed at their armor. The storm's hiss was punctuated by distant howls, something large, something hungry. Suddenly, their path opened into a clearing strewn with the skeletal remains of old human supply caches. Rusted crates lay torn open, their contents long scavenged, or worse. One of the mercs, Brawl, knelt to inspect a bloodstain seeping into the dirt. "Fresh," he said, voice barely above a whisper. Yorvath frowned. "They're close." Killen scanned the area with a handheld scanner, but the readings were strange. Biometric signatures flickered and vanished like ghosts. Are they hiding? Or something else? Killen wondered aloud. Before Yorvath could answer, a sharp metallic click echoed through the clearing. Instinctively, he dove to the side as a razor-thin filament snapped tight where the mercs had been moments before. "Tripwire," Yorvath growled. "Not your average human traps, these are engineered." Brawl examined the device. Sophisticated, almost alive. "That's just the start," Yorvath said grimly. "We're on their turf now. They don't want visitors." The mercs pressed forward, each step heavier than the last. The jungle seemed to close in around them, branches reaching like claws, vines shifting suspiciously in the corner of their eyes. Their comm signals crackled with interference, and every shadow looked like it might conceal a predator. Suddenly, a piercing screech erupted overhead. The squad ducked as a massive winged beast dove past, talons nearly grazing Yorvath's helmet. "Watch the skies," Killen shouted. Yorvath tightened his grip on his pulse rifle. "This planet isn't just alive, it's hungry, and it wants us." They reached the edge of the ruins, where shattered walls and broken structures told a story of battles long past. The ruins were scarred with strange symbols, red V's crudely painted in blood standing out starkly against the dull stone. Yorvath crouched and traced a finger over one symbol. The mark of Valkyrie Unit 9. Killen glanced at him sharply. "You think they left this as a warning? Or a promise?" Yorvath replied. "They want us to know they're here, watching." As dusk fell, the acid rain slowed to a steady drizzle, but the oppressive silence that followed was worse. No animal sounds, no wind, just the pounding of Yorvath's heart in his ears. Suddenly, movement flickered at the edge of the clearing. Shadows darted between trees too fast to catch. "Contact," Killen hissed. "They're out there." Yorvath raised his rifle, voice low and steady. "Remember what we're facing. They don't run. They don't retreat. They hunt. A pair. of glowing eyes blinked from the darkness. Then another. And another. The jungle seemed alive with watching predators. Not animals, but something more, something human. Yorvath's jaw clenched. This was just the beginning. The night on Grave Hollow settled in like a suffocating shroud, swallowing the mercenaries in near total darkness. The acid rain had stopped, but the heavy fog thickened, curling through the ruins like restless spirits. Every breath was bitter and harsh, and every step felt watched. Jorvath Wren crouched near the edge of the clearing, eyes scanning with his infrared goggles, pulse rifle ready. Around him, his mercenary team, 10 hardened veterans, tightened their formation, nerves fraying beneath the weight of the planet's oppressive silence. "Where are they?" Killen whispered, voice tense. "We should have seen movement by now." "Patience," Yorvath said. "Valkyrie Unit 9 doesn't just run into traps. They set them. They watch. And they wait." The squad advanced carefully, stepping over shattered equipment and shattered bones of old battles. A faint shimmer in the air made the hairs on Yorvath's neck stand on end. The jungle was alive, not just with beasts, but something darker. Suddenly a soft snap, like a twig breaking, echoed behind them. Brawl, the squad scout, spun around, but nothing was there. "Got something?" Yorvath asked. Brawl shook his head, eyes darting nervously. "Keep moving," Yorvath ordered. They crossed into a narrow ravine, the walls slick with acidic residue. The faint hum of distant machinery teased their ears. Without warning, a piercing scream shattered the silence. Oh, guttural, terrified sound that cut through the fog. "Brel," someone shouted. Yorvath whipped around. The scout was gone. One moment Brawl was with them, and now, nothing. No body, no blood, just an empty space where he'd stood. "Spread out! Find him!" Yorvath barked. The mercs fanned out, shining flashlights into the fog. The dense mist swallowed their beams, and every shadow seemed to twist into lurking shapes. But there was no trace of Brawl. A low growl echoed from the darkness, then silence. Killen's voice trembled. "This isn't natural. He's been taken. Or worse." Jorvath gritted his teeth. "No one gets left behind. We find him now." Minutes passed like hours as the team searched in frantic circles, but Brawl was gone without a trace. A cold dread settled over them. If Brawl, one of the most experienced scouts, could vanish without a trace, then none of them were safe. The squad regrouped near an old supply depot, exhaustion creeping in. Killen ran a scan on his portable device. Biosigns are flickering, unstable. "It's like someone's scrambling our sensors, or hiding from them," Yorvath said grimly. They rested for a moment, but the tension was electric. Every rustle, every whisper of wind felt like a threat. Suddenly the comm unit crackled with static. "Hello?" Killen's voice broke. A distorted whisper answered. "You don't belong here." The mercs froze. "Who? What?" Killen started. Shadow darted between the trees, moving so fast it was almost invisible. "Ambush!" Yorvath yelled, raising his rifle. Bullets tore into the fog, but they hit nothing. The shadows slipped between them like ghosts. The mercs fired blindly, adrenaline surging. From the darkness, a voice rang out. Calm, chilling, unmistakably human. "This is Valkyrie Unit 9. Leave now. You will not survive." Jorvath's heart pounded. They're here, and they're not. Bluffing. One by one, his team members began to vanish. A gunner was pulled into the shadows by unseen hands. Another was dragged screaming into the underbrush, never to be seen again. No bodies were found. No bodies were left behind. Only broken gear and terrified silence. The mercs' morale cracked under the pressure. "Why don't they just kill us? Outright?" Killen asked, voice shaking. "Why disappear us like ghosts?" "Because this is their war," Yorvath answered grimly. "They don't just fight, they erase." Hours passed in a nightmare haze. The mercs barely slept. Every moment, on edge. The line between hunter and hunted blurred until it disappeared. Then, near dawn, Yorvath found something that stopped him cold. A crude carving scratched into a rock wall, bloody and jagged, A simple symbol, a red V underneath, scrawled in hurried, desperate script, the words, "We don't die, we don't run, we hunt." Jorvath's blood ran cold. "They want us to know," he whispered. "They want us terrified." The mercs gathered around the symbol, shadows etched deep on their faces. "We're in their world now," Jorvath said, voice low. "And they're the apex predators." The realization settled like ice. The mercenaries weren't just fighting soldiers. They were fighting legends, ghosts bred on a death world that had hardened them into something otherworldly. Jorvath clenched his fists around his rifle. "We'll find them. We'll finish this. Or we'll become the next vanishing." The mercenaries exchanged fearful glances, the truth sinking in. On Gravehollow, death was the easy part. The real nightmare was to simply disappear. The ruins breathed a quiet menace as the mercenary squad advanced cautiously, every step echoing through the hollow remnants of what had once been a thriving human settlement. The acid rain had finally ceased, leaving behind a thick, suffocating fog that clung to the cracked walls and corroded metal like a shroud. The air was heavy with the scent of decay and something else, a faint metallic tang that unsettled even the hardiest of the mercs. Jorvath Wren led the way, eyes sharp behind, his visor pulse rifle raised but steady. The others followed, their senses on edge after the horrors of the previous night. They'd lost men, good men, swallowed whole by the unseen predators lurking in the darkness. Now the remaining few pressed forward, driven by desperation, greed, and the thin hope of survival. "We're close," Killen murmured, voice barely above the whisper of shifting fog. "The sensor readings. They're coming from that bunker ahead." Jorvath's gaze fixed on the entrance carved into the earth, a jagged maw of metal and stone that led underground. The air hummed faintly with residual power, the kind that spoke of advanced tech still active despite the decades of abandonment. "This is where Valkyrie Unit 9 made their stand," Jorvath said grimly. "If the legends are true, this bunker holds answers." The squad entered, their boots crunching on debris and shattered glass. Inside, dim emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows along the walls lined with faded propaganda and battle scars. Killen scanned a nearby console, fingers dancing over cracked controls. Suddenly the screen flickered to life, displaying a grainy hololog. The face of a human soldier appeared, young, sharp-eyed, with a grim determination that sent chills down Jorvath's spine. The soldier spoke, voice calm but resolute. "This is Sergeant Miko Vega, Valkyrie Unit 9. If you're seeing this, it means our mission failed, or you're foolish enough to try where others have died." Jorvath motioned for silence as the hololog played. Vega's squad moved through, alien jungles dismantling enemy forces with brutal efficiency. Their weapons were standard issue, but their tactics, silent, swift, deadly, were beyond anything the mercs had witnessed. At one point, the holo showed Vega alone, crouched in the underbrush. With only a combat knife, she dispatched 3 heavily armored alien soldiers. Her movements fluid, almost supernatural in speed. The video cut abruptly, replaced by static. Then, for a heartbeat, Vega's eyes seemed to fix directly on the viewer. "We don't die," her voice whispered through the static. "We don't run, we hunt." The holovid ended, leaving the mercs in an oppressive silence. "What the hell was that?" Killen breathed. Jorvath's mind raced. These humans weren't just soldiers. They were evolved predators, honed by a brutal world to become something, beyond mercenaries or commandos. Their training was survival incarnate. He crouched, noticing strange symbols scratched into the bunker walls. Crude but unmistakable, a red V surrounded by tally marks, like a hunter marking kills. Suddenly, a faint noise echoed from deeper within the bunker, the soft clinking of metal, a whisper of movement. Jorvath raised his rifle, signaling the squad to spread out cautiously. Killen's comm crackled. Movement detected in the lower levels. Unknown life signs, faint but human. Could it be a trap? Brawl's voice was tight. "Only one way to find out," Jorvath said. The squad descended a winding staircase, each step echoing into darkness. The walls grew damp, the air thick with the scent of machine oil and blood. At the bottom they found a war room, walls lined with alien weaponry, shattered armor, and relics from battles fought long ago. A holographic map flickered weakly in, the corner marked with red dots that pulsed faintly. Targets, Yorvath muttered. This was their battlefield. Suddenly the lights dimmed further, and a shadow moved just beyond the edge of the holo's glow. Contact, Yorvath yelled, aiming his rifle. The figure stepped forward, a woman clad in battered but advanced armor, her eyes piercing and unblinking beneath a scarred helmet. The emblem on her shoulder, the red V. Miko Vega, she said, voice cold steel. You should have stayed away. The mercs froze. This was no myth. This was no ghost. This was the hunter. Before Yorvath could respond, Vega vanished into the shadows, faster than any human should be capable. Don't follow, she warned, her voice echoing around them, or you'll disappear too. The squad scrambled to regroup, hearts pounding, minds racing. The bunker's walls seemed to close in, alive with menace and secrets better left buried. Yorvath stared after Vega's retreating form, the weight of the warning settling deep in his bones. The human myth wasn't a story. It was a living nightmare, and it was hunting them. The bunker's stale air was suffocating, thick with the scent of rust, blood, and old battles long since ended. Yorvath Wren pressed his back against the cold, damp wall, every muscle taut as his squad tried to regroup after the terrifying encounter with Sergeant Miko Vega. The mercenaries' weapons still hummed with residual charge, but the eerie silence that followed was more dangerous than any gunfire. We can't keep running, Yorvath said through gritted teeth. His voice barely carried over the low hum of the aging systems. They're hunting us like prey, and the shadows, they're their home. Killen wiped sweat from his brow, eyes darting nervously. How do you fight something that doesn't just survive this death world, but thrives in it? They move like ghosts, strike and vanish. Because they are ghosts, Yorvath replied grimly. Humans bred on Grave Hollow aren't like us. They're not just soldiers. They're hunters, perfected by every nightmare this planet threw at them. A faint metallic scraping echoed down the corridor, making the squad freeze. Weapons raised, they scanned the darkness as a second figure stepped into the weak glow of the flickering emergency lights. It was another Valkyrie, taller, with armor scarred by countless battles, eyes sharp beneath a battle-worn helmet. You shouldn't have come, the newcomer said, voice low and deadly. Yorvath steadied his rifle, returning fire with measured precision. But the Valkyrie didn't dodge like an ordinary human. She melted into the shadows, reappearing behind them in an instant. Before anyone could react, a concussive blast hit the wall where they had stood seconds before. Fall back, Yorvath barked, pulling his team into a tight formation. The mercenaries moved like trained wolves, but the Valkyries were unlike any enemy they had faced. Killen swore as he ducked under a swinging pipe, heart racing. How are they so fast? So damn silent. Brawl, still shaken from his near disappearance, shook his head. They're not just fast. They're everywhere. The mercs fought through the maze of corridors and chambers, dodging traps set with cruel ingenuity, explosive mines disguised as alien flora, razor wire that sparked deadly arcs of electricity, and sensor nets that triggered hidden turrets. At every turn, the Valkyries appeared and vanished like wraiths, striking with lethal precision and disappearing before the mercs could even see the attack. Their combat tactics were calculated to terrorize, not just kill. Yorvath's mind raced back to the hollow logs from the bunker. The humans had moved as one, a shadowy storm of death trained to exploit every weakness. We're losing men too. Fast, Killen said, voice strained as he reloaded. We need a plan. Yorvath's eyes narrowed. We don't have a plan. We have to survive long enough to learn their tactics. As the squad pressed deeper into the bowels of the bunker, they came upon a central chamber bathed in pale, flickering light. Walls were lined with crates of advanced weaponry, some alien, some clearly human experimental tech, cloaking devices, enhanced sensory gear, bioengineered combat suits. This is their arsenal, Yorvath muttered. They fight not just with skill, but with technology honed for this hell. Killen pulled a small device from his pack, scanning the room for traps. We can use some of this gear. Maybe level the playing field. Before Yorvath could respond, the temperature dropped sharply. their breaths turning visible in the cold air. From the shadows stepped the squad's deadliest opponent yet, Commander Elise Thane, leader of Valkyrie Unit 9. Her presence was commanding, almost supernatural. Her armor bore the same red V, but with jagged marks that hinted at countless victories and scars earned in brutal combat. "You don't belong here," Thane said, voice sharp as a blade. "This planet shapes us into hunters. You are nothing but prey." Jorvath leveled his rifle. "We're here to finish this one way or another." Thane smiled, a cruel, unreadable expression. "You will vanish like the others. You can't fight what Gravehollow makes of us." Suddenly, the room erupted into chaos. The Valkyries struck as a coordinated storm, lightning fast, merciless. Jorvath's squad fought back with everything they had, but it was clear the tide was turning. Killen fired at a shadow, only to have the shot absorbed by a shimmering cloaking field. "Adaptive camouflage," Jorvath muttered. "They blend into the environment itself." The battle became a blur of motion and noise. Screams echoed, weapons discharged, and shadows moved like living nightmares. Jorvath ducked as a blade sliced past his helmet, the edge nicking his armor. "Hold the line," he shouted, rallying the remaining mercs. But slowly, inexorably, the Valkyries closed in, shadows closing around their prey, hunters erasing the hunted. Jorvath's heart pounded in his chest as he realized the brutal truth. This was not just a fight for a bounty. This was a war for survival against something forged by the cruelest planet in the galaxy, and only one side would walk away alive. The air inside the bunker was thick with smoke and the metallic tang of blood as the battle between mercenaries and Valkyries raged on. Jorvath Wren's breath came in sharp bursts, sweat mingling with grime on his faceplate as he pressed his back against a crumbling wall. Around him, the remaining mercs scrambled to regroup, their numbers dwindling rapidly with every passing second. Killen clutched a bleeding arm, eyes wild with desperation. "They're not just soldiers. They're something else. Faster, stronger, like the planet itself fights with them." Jorvath wiped a trickle of blood from his lip, voice grim. "That's because they are born of this world. Gravehollow's fury made them predators, hunters forged in acid storms and lightning strikes." The mercs had seen the evidence firsthand. Valkyries disappearing into thin air, shadows melting into the mist, weapons rendered useless by adaptive camouflage and deadly traps. Every corner was a death trap. Every moment without vigilance was a step closer to vanishing. Suddenly, a low hum vibrated through the floor, an ominous warning. "Something's coming," Brawl whispered, the last merc scout still with them. Jorvath scanned the darkness ahead, pulse rifle ready. Through the thickening fog, the faint glow of moving figures emerged. Valkyries, their armor shimmering like liquid shadows, eyes glowing with cold calculation. The humans advanced, synchronized, and silent, the embodiment of the planet's lethal will. Their leader, Commander Elise Thane, stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "This ends now," she said, voice calm but lethal. "Leave Gravehollow, or become part of it." Jorvath swallowed hard, knowing their options were razor thin. "We don't leave until the job's done." Thane's smile was cruel and knowing. "Then prepare to be hunted." With unnatural speed, the Valkyries struck. They moved as one, a storm of deadly precision. Jorvath fired at a flickering shadow, but the shot passed through a cloaked figure that dissolved like smoke. Killen barely dodged a blade swipe that left a shallow cut across his chest. "They're like ghosts." "They're better than ghosts," Jorvath growled. "They're Gravehollow incarnate." The mercs fought desperately back against the wall, every second a gamble for survival. But the Valkyries pressed the attack, their knowledge of the terrain and lethal abilities overwhelming. Suddenly, the bunker shook violently, a massive tremor from Gravehollow's restless core. Dust rained from the ceiling as cracks spread through. "The walls! Structural collapse!" Brawl shouted. "We have to move!" Jorvath grabbed Killen's arm, dragging him toward a narrow corridor barely visible through the fog. The squad fell into a frantic retreat, shadows stalking them relentlessly. In the tight passageways, the mercenaries' tech was useless. The Valkyries seemed to read their every move, anticipating, cutting off escape routes with uncanny precision. "We're cornered," Killen gasped. "There's nowhere left to run." Yorvath's mind raced. The bunker's layout was unfamiliar, but the hollow logs had shown hidden exits, secret tunnels beneath the surface. "Through the sublevels," he said, determination hardening his voice. "We fight through or die trying." The squad burst into a dimly lit chamber where ancient machinery hummed beneath layers of grime. A rusted control panel blinked faintly, and Yorvath wasted no time. "Help me open this door," he ordered. Kylan worked the controls as the mercs braced for another assault. The door hissed open, revealing a spiraling tunnel disappearing into the planet's bowels. "Go," Jorvath urged. One by one, the squad slipped inside, the heavy door grinding shut behind them. The tunnel was narrow and suffocating, carved from living rock and slick with moisture. Every footstep echoed unnervingly. Behind them, faint shouts and the ominous thump of heavy boots echoed as the Valkyries pursued relentlessly. "Faster!" Yorvath urged the group. "We can't let them catch us here." As they plunged deeper into the underground labyrinth, the air grew hotter, more oppressive. Strange bioluminescent fungi clung to the walls, casting eerie shadows that danced with every flicker of their flashlights. Suddenly, the tunnel opened into a massive cavern, the heart of Gravehollow's subterranean network, a natural cathedral of jagged stone and glowing pools of acidic water. Jorvath scanned the cavern, sensing the danger lurking in the shadows. "We can hold them here," he said, pulling out experimental weapons scavenged from the bunker, pulse grenades designed to disrupt cloaking fields. The mercs prepared their defenses as the Valkyries emerged from the darkness, their forms melding seamlessly with the cavern's gloom. The battle erupted anew, each explosion sending shockwaves through the cavern. The Valkyries howled in fury, their near-superhuman agility pushing the mercs to their limits. Amidst the chaos, Yorvath locked eyes with Commander Thane across the chamber. Time slowed, predator against predator, each waiting for the other. To make the fatal mistake, Jorvath raised his rifle, a fierce determination blazing in his eyes. "This ends now," he vowed. As the two charged, the fate of the Mercenaries and the secret of Gravehollow's deadliest warriors hung in the balance. The cavern was alive with chaos. Shouts, gunfire, and the eerie hiss of pulse grenades detonating against stone. The acidic pools cast flickering light across jagged walls, reflecting the desperate battle raging within. Yorvath Wren's muscles burned as he sprinted through the cavern, every sense sharpened to survival. Across the expanse, Commander Elise Thane moved like a shadow, fluid, lethal, her armor gleaming dimly beneath the bioluminescent glow. Their eyes locked, predator and prey now equals in the deadliest of dances. Jorvath tightened his grip on his rifle, adrenaline surging. "This ends here," he whispered. Thane's smile was cold and unreadable. "For you, maybe." They charged. Simultaneously, Jorvath fired, but Thane vanished, a blur melting into the shadows. A sharp blade flashed, slicing through the air where he had stood seconds before. He rolled aside just in time, feeling the razor edge whistle past. Bullets tore through the air as the two circled, neither giving ground. Behind him, his squad fought desperately against the other Valkyries, shadows blending with shadows in a deadly symphony of death. Killen screamed as a blade caught his leg, but he fought on, pulling a pulse grenade from his pack and hurling it toward an advancing enemy. The blast shattered the cavern's silence, knocking back a group of the human hunters. Jorvath saw his chance. He lunged forward, rifle butt swinging, catching Thane's jaw with a sickening crack. She stumbled, fury flashing in her eyes. "You're strong," she hissed, wiping blood from her lip. "But strength alone won't save you." With impossible speed, she grabbed him, twisting and throwing him hard against the cavern wall. Stars exploded behind Jorvath's eyelids, breath knocked out, but he wasn't done. He reached into his jacket and pulled a small device, a neural disruptor stolen from the bunker's arsenal. Pressing it against Thane's armor, he triggered the pulse. Thane screamed as her cloak flickered and failed, her form exposed in the cavern's eerie light. Now vulnerable, Yorvath pressed his advantage, striking with a ferocity born from desperation. "You think technology makes you invincible," he spat. "But it's your will, your humanity, that's your weakness." Thane snarled, dropping the cloak and pulling a hidden blade. The duel intensified, blade clashing against rifle stock, sparks flying. Meanwhile, the rest of the mercs pushed back the remaining Valkyries. The battle was turning, but the cost was high. Brawl lay unconscious, bleeding heavily. Killen limped but fought on, eyes haunted. Jorvath's mind flashed to the hollow logs. Stories of soldiers bred and broken by Grave Hollow, trained in ways that blurred the line between human and something else. "Why do you fight for this planet?" Yorvath demanded during a moment's break in their clash. "Why do you embrace this nightmare?" Thane's eyes burned with bitter pride. "Because Grave Hollow made us stronger. It took everything from us, but it gave us purpose. We don't run, we don't die, we hunt." Her words echoed with a haunting truth. Jorvath realized this was more than a mission. It was a war of survival, between two species shaped by their worlds. With a roar, Thane surged forward, blade flashing. Yorvath barely parried, then countered, with a heavy blow that staggered her. They crashed to the cavern floor, locked in a brutal struggle. Pain seared through Yorvath's ribs, but he fought on, fueled by the knowledge that failure meant oblivion. Suddenly, a tremor shook the cavern, deeper and stronger than before. The ground cracked, and acidic water began to bubble violently around them. "We have to move," Jorvath shouted, breaking free and pulling Thane up. Reluctantly, she nodded, eyes wary but understanding. Together, they sprinted toward the cavern's exit as the world behind them began to collapse. The mercenaries, battered but alive, followed closely. Outside, the sky was heavy with dark clouds, the planet itself roaring with fury. Jorvath looked at the Valkyrie commander, both of them bloodied and exhausted. "This isn't over," Thane said fiercely. "No," Jorvath agreed. "But we're still standing. The hunters and the hunted, bound by the relentless will to survive on a death world where only the strongest could endure." The sky above Grave Hollow was a roiling tempest of thunder and lightning, the planet's fury echoing the turmoil within the battered mercenary squad. Yorvath Wren leaned against the scorched remains of a rock outcrop, chest heaving as he surveyed the grim faces of his surviving team. Only a handful remained, scarred, bloodied, but alive. Commander Elise Thane stood nearby, her armor cracked, her eyes still blazing with unyielding fire. The battle had ended not with victory, but with an uneasy truce, born from mutual respect and the raw understanding that on Grave Hollow, even the strongest must sometimes yield. "You survived," Thane said quietly, voice carrying the weight of hard-won experience. "Few do," Yorvath nodded. "Because we fought with this world, not against it." For a long moment, the two leaders regarded each other, predator and predator, each forged in their own crucible of survival. Then, Yorvath gestured toward the horizon, where lightning tore through the clouds in brilliant streaks. "Your people. They're not just soldiers, they're the final answer to what it means to survive here." Thane's gaze softened just a fraction. "We are what Grave Hollow demanded of us, but even we have limits." The mercenary's eyes narrowed. "Limits you're pushing even now. What happens if you don't stop?" She sighed, the hardness in her posture giving way to something almost vulnerable. "We become the hunters who never come back." The words hung in the air like a warning. Jorvath's comm crackled suddenly, distant signals from their extraction team confirming a secure pickup. Time was short. He turned to his squad. "We leave now. We've learned enough. Grave Hollow's secrets aren't ours to claim, not yet." Killen, leaning heavily on his rifle, managed a grim smile. "Guess the myth wasn't wrong. Humans from Grave Hollow don't just survive, they become legends." As the squad prepared to depart, Yorvath looked back at the jagged landscape, the alien jungle, the acid storms, the the shattered bunker. This planet had tested them in ways no mercenary had ever imagined, but more than that, it had shown them what it meant to endure beyond death. Commander Thane stepped forward, extending a hand. If you ever return, come ready. We don't just fight to win, we fight to remain. Yorvath clasped her hand firmly. Next time we'll come stronger. As their dropship's engines whined to life, the mercenaries took one last look at Gravehollow, the death world that forged monsters, myths, and warriors who never forgot the cost of survival. Above, the storm began to break, faint light piercing. The clouds like a promise. The hunt was over for now, but on Gravehollow the legends never died.